There's a village in the desert that's been there for 400 years. And it survived every single drought in that time, not because it got lucky with rain, but because of something the elders did that no other village around them ever bothered to do. They dug 3 wells. Not 1, 3. And today, I'm going to show you exactly why that matters to your retirement. Because right now, most of you watching this have dug exactly 1 well for your entire future. And if I'm right about that, the next part of this video might be the most important 6 minutes you spend all year. Stick with me. This gets very real, very fast. If nobody has ever explained this to you before, and most financial advisors never do, hit subscribe now. Because what's coming next could be the difference between your money lasting until 95 or running dry at 78. Okay, let's go back to that village. Picture a different village. Same desert. Same harsh sun. But this one only ever dug a single well. 4 years, it worked fine. Rain came when it was supposed to. The well stayed full. Life was good. Then the drought hit. And here's the part that should make you uncomfortable. When that one well started running low, the villagers had no choice. They had to ration. They had to dig deeper, fast, in the middle of the dry season, the worst possible time to be digging anything. Some of them even had to walk for days to buy water from neighboring towns, paying whatever price was demanded, because they had nothing else to fall back on. Now here's the question I want you to sit with for a second. If your entire retirement is sitting in one account, one pool of money, mostly in stocks, mostly in the market, what happens to you during a drought? What happens when the market drops 30% the same year you need to start pulling money out to live on? You do exactly what that village did. You're forced to pull water out of a well that's already running dangerously low. Except in your case, pulling water means selling stocks at the worst possible time, locking in a loss you can never get back. Financial people have a name for this. They call it sequence of returns risk. I'm going to call it what it actually feels like, panic selling your future because nobody ever told you there was another way. And here's the cruel part of it. It's not even about whether the market eventually recovers. Markets almost always do, given enough time. The cruelty is in the timing. 2 people can retire with the exact same amount of money, invest in the exact same things, and end up with wildly different outcomes. Not because one of them was smarter, but because one of them happened to retire right before a crash and was forced to sell at the bottom, while the other retired during a calm stretch and never had to touch a thing. Same strategy. Same intelligence. Completely different fate, decided entirely by timing nobody can control. That's the problem the 3 wells were built to solve. Now let's go back to the smart village. The one with 3 wells. Let me walk you through each one, because once you see this, you will never look at your savings the same way again. The first well sits closest to the houses. It's shallow. Easy to reach. This is the well people use every single day, no matter what the sky looks like. In your retirement, this first well is cash. Plain, boring, unglamorous cash, sitting in a savings account or a money market fund. Most experts suggest keeping somewhere around 1 to 2 years of your living expenses here. Why does this matter so much? Because this well is what protects the other 2. When the market crashes, and it will at some point, it always does, you are not forced to touch your stocks. You simply walk to the shallow well, the one that was never affected by the storm in the first place, and you keep living your life. No panic. No emergency selling. No watching your life savings shrink while you're forced to pull money out of it at the same time. This is the well most people skip entirely. They put everything into the market because it grows faster, forgetting that growth means nothing if you're forced to sell during the 1 year it actually drops. The second well sits a little further out. A little deeper. It takes more effort to draw water from it, but it's far more reliable than rainfall alone. This is your bonds, your CDs, your more conservative, income-generating investments. This well is built to cover roughly years 3 through 7 of your retirement. Here's the part that makes this so elegant. While you're living off well number 1, your cash, well number 2 is quietly doing 2 jobs at once. It's generating modest, steady income. And it's slowly refilling well number 1, so that boring cash well never actually runs dry either. Think of it like a bridge between the safety of cash and the growth of the market. It's not exciting. It will never be the thing you brag about at dinner. But it's the reason the whole system doesn't collapse the moment something unexpected happens. And now, the deepest well. The one furthest from the house. The one the village elders explicitly told their children, do not touch this one unless every other option is gone. This is your stock portfolio. Your growth investments. The well that takes the longest to fill, and the longest to recover if it's ever drained too early. Because it's deep, it's also powerful. Given enough time, this well can produce more water than the other two combined. But that power only works if you give it time. If you're forced to draw from it during a drought, during a crash, you don't just lose water. You lose the well's ability to ever fully recover, because you've pulled water out exactly when the well was already struggling to refill itself. This is the well that's meant to last 15, 20, 30 years into your retirement. The villagers who survived every drought in 400 years weren't the ones who got lucky. They were the ones disciplined enough to leave that third well alone, year after year, even when the temptation to dip into it was strong. If you're starting to realize you've only ever dug one well, comment, "I found my first well right now," before you forget. That single sentence tells me you're paying attention, and it helps this video reach someone else who needs to hear this before their own drought arrives. Let's make this real with numbers, because stories are nice, but numbers are what actually convince people to act. Say you retire with $400,000. Without a bucket strategy, that's just one well, mostly invested in the market, because that's what you were told would grow your money. You start withdrawing the standard 4%, about $16,000 a year. Now imagine the market drops 30% in your second year of retirement. If everything is in one account, you have no choice. You sell stocks at a loss just to eat, just to pay for the basics. That money is gone. Not paper gone. Actually gone. It can never grow back, because it no longer exists in your account. Now imagine the same $400,000, split across 3 wells. Well 1 holds roughly $30,000 in cash, your 18 months of expenses. Well 2 holds maybe $120,000 in bonds. Well 3 holds the rest, around $250,000, in long-term growth investments. That same 30% crash happens. But this time? You shrug. You keep paying your bills out of well 1. Your stocks sit untouched, given the time they need to recover, which historically, they almost always do within a few years. You didn't avoid the storm. Nobody can avoid the storm. But you survived it without losing anything permanently. Let's go 5 years further, because this is where the real damage shows up, not in the crash itself, but in what happens after. In the one-well version, you sold roughly $45,000 worth of stocks during that crash, at the bottom, just to keep the lights on for 2 years. That money never gets the chance to recover, because it's not in the market anymore. It's spent. Gone. Meanwhile, the market does what it almost always eventually does. It climbs back, and then some. But you weren't there for the climb. You were forced out at the exact wrong moment, and that one decision alone can cost you the better part of a decade of growth on that money. In the 3-well version, that same $45,000 stayed exactly where it was, inside well 3, while you quietly lived off well 1 instead. 5 years later, when the market has recovered and grown, that money is still working. Still compounding. Still yours. The gap between these two outcomes isn't a few $1,000s. On a $400,000 retirement, this single structural choice can mean a difference of well over $100,000 by the time you're in your 80s. Not because one person picked better stocks, but because one person was never forced to sell at the wrong time, and the other one had no choice. That's not luck. That's structure. That's the entire difference between the two villages. Here's something that might make you a little frustrated, and honestly, it should. This isn't complicated. It isn't some secret hedge fund strategy locked away from regular people. It's something a desert village figured out centuries ago with nothing but shovels and common sense. And yet most people reach retirement having never heard of it, because the financial industry profits more when your money sits fully invested, generating fees, rather than sitting safely in boring cash where it belongs. Think about who actually benefits when your entire $400,000 sits in one well, fully invested, all the time. The advisor managing it earns a fee on the whole amount every single year, whether the market goes up or down. There's very little incentive in that arrangement for anyone to sit you down and say, let's move $30,000 of this into boring cash, where it earns nobody a commission, but keeps you safe. That conversation doesn't happen often. Not out of malice. Most advisors genuinely believe in the markets they invest in, but because the structure of the entire industry rewards keeping money invested, not keeping you protected. Nobody is conspiring against you specifically. But nobody is rushing to teach you the boring, simple thing either, when the exciting, complicated thing keeps the machine running. That's exactly why this channel exists. So here's what I want you to actually do. Not someday. This week. Sit down and calculate your monthly essential expenses, the real ones, not the fantasy budget. Multiply that by 12, then by however many years you want in your first well, typically 1 to 2. That number is your first well. Then look at what you have left. A portion goes into well 2, something steady, something conservative, built to last 5 more years. And whatever remains goes into well 3. The deep one. The one you protect like it's the only thing standing between you and running dry at 78. One more thing worth saying out loud, because it changes everything about how this feels day to day. This isn't a one-time decision you make and forget. Once a year, maybe when you do your taxes, maybe on your birthday, whatever date sticks in your head, you check the wells again. If well 1 ran a little low because you used it during a rough year, you refill it from well 2. If well 2 ran low, you decide whether it's time to draw a small amount from well 3, but only in a year when the market has actually been kind to you. That yearly check-in is the entire maintenance routine. It takes less time than choosing a Netflix show, and it's the difference between a plan that works for 30 years and one that quietly falls apart the first time life gets complicated. You don't need a financial advisor to start this conversation. You just need a notebook and 20 honest minutes tonight. If this video gave you even one thing to think about differently tonight, do 2 things for me. Comment, I found my first well, so I know this reached you. And send this to one person in your life who's retiring in the next 5 years and still has everything sitting in a single account, because they need to hear this before their drought arrives, not during it. And if you want more of this, real strategies, explained the way they should have been explained to you decades ago, subscribe. There's a lot more water in this well. I'll see you in the next one.